And for those of you that do know me, my name is still Vic Girling. I thought I'd start by giving a little background on my military career. I entered the Army in June 1964 and was assigned to the 1st of the 35th Artillery in Munich, Germany. It was great duty and a great place to be stationed. And in September of 1966, I returned to the United States and was ordered to the 1st of the 14th Artillery at Fort Hood, Texas. At that time, the 1st of the 14th Artillery was in the process of becoming part of the Americal Division and was on orders for Vietnam. I was assigned to a three-man FO team, which was assigned to the 1st of the 6th Infantry, and they assigned me to that team because I was an FO when I was stationed in Germany, and it was a forward observer team. I arrived in Vietnam on July 7th, 1967, and we were processed into a place called Chu Lai and were assigned to the I Corps area that was just north of Da Nang. There was no time for us to comprehend what we were about to face. We immediately were sent out on what they called a search and destroy mission deep in the jungles of Vietnam. Our only job was to find the North Vietnam Army, neutralize their attacks. Life as I had known it would never be the same. I suddenly had to cope with all the jungle had to offer, and even my worst nightmares could have never imagined how I was about to spend my nights and days. The heat in the jungle was just as unbearable as the bugs that I've never seen before and hope I'll never see again. We walked through the brush and the mud with all our heavy gear in this 115-degree heat, never having enough water and always making sure we treated the water we did have. We paid the price if we didn't take our salt tabs and treat our water with the iodine tabs to kill whatever was floating and living inside of our canteens. We slept wherever we stopped, and when we woke up, we quickly found a buddy so that we could start removing the leeches from each other that had spent the night living and feeding on us. Sleep was a luxury that we didn't often get. When we did, we were constantly on guard. We slept up against trees, whatever else we could find, so that no one could sneak up behind us or around us at night. We were constantly alert for snipers, raids, and attacks from our enemies, and that fear was not unfounded, as these types of attacks happened almost daily. We never knew when the next attack was coming. In September 1967, we were assigned to what was known as a 60-minute alert company. Our main focus was to reinforce other units elsewhere in the I Corps area. Before we could even blink, we were all loaded into choppers and moved to a place where I know God forgot about, called Landing Zone Gator, south of Chu Lai. Landing Zone Gator was a base on the top of a hill where the engineers cleared the vegetation, put out a little barbed wire, set up a few bunkers, and now we called it home. On February 7th, 1968, we were ordered to move north of Da Nang to be a part of Task Force Miracle. We arrived at the new base around midnight under the control of the 1st Marine Division. We got our orders to move out around midnight to a blocking position just east of the Kando River near the village of Logang. The Marines had a civil action team there that had performed medical and dental care on the villagers, as well as provided the kids with coloring books and crayons and other various items. It was part of a pacification program that the Marine Corps had in country. I can remember the call that came just before daybreak. We were told from the civil action team that they had observed 20 to 30 North Vietnamese soldiers in the area, and we immediately were on alert and ready for action. The Marines sent out a 13-man relief force to secure the area and secure the cap team until daylight. But when the light came up, an aerial observer had reported that he saw over 400 North Vietnamese soldiers. We never got that report. It wasn't long before the 13-man team was overrun. I remember the desperation in the radio call yelling, "They're all over us. There's no way out." Don't send anyone else in here. That was it. That was the last time we heard from that 13-man team. We didn't know at the time, but this was going to be the beginning of the worst day of our lives and one of the worst battles of the Vietnam War and the Tet Offense. We were right in the middle of it all, and we had no way out. We started taking in sniper fire very early that morning and had to send out some of our guys to find the snipers and neutralize them. Once that was done, we started receiving mortar and machine gun fire from the tree line. This kind of a battle is difficult to describe. There's no safe place to be, and the sound is literally deafening. It's hard to tell exactly where the fire is coming from, and all I could see was my brothers going down all around me. Then I saw the fire coming from the tree line ahead, so we called in artillery fire on the tree line and were able to stop it for a brief time. We knew it was only temporary. There was only about 500 yards between us and that tree line, and they were still there. During this time, we were hearing on the radio that another company, Company B of the 198th, which was sweeping in from the west, was being attacked and pinned down, and they didn't know the size of the force that they were against. They were having trouble advancing. And minutes later, we heard another radio call that Charlie Company was also pinned down. All three of our companies were up against a force that we had no idea of its size. We were no longer ordered to advance. We were in a survival mode. My captain, Captain Brennan, then got the order for all of us to drop our heavy gear, set up our mortars, and get into an assault line. We were going to cross that rice paddy and get into the village. At least that was the plan. I was near the middle of the assault line along with Captain Brennan, his two radio operators, my second lieutenant, and our radio operator. We began receiving gunfire immediately from the tree line, and this is when I lost my lieutenant and also my radio operator. But that didn't stop us. We continued on. We returned fire and continued on. We were walking across what we thought was a flat land through mud up to our knees and rice plants about 18 inches high. We didn't know, nor could we see, that just ahead of us was a ditch and in that ditch were hundreds of camouflaged North Vietnamese soldiers lying in wait. We couldn't have been more than 30 yards from them when they all came charging out, and we instantly found ourselves in the battle of our lives, firing at point-blank range while fighting hand-to-hand combat. We were in so deep and it happened so fast. Finally, we got the order to fall back, and we started what we called leapfrogging. Half the company would fall back, half would stay, cover them, returning fire, keeping the company at bay as we could until the other half was able to fall back as well. I had done this 4 or 5 times, losing men each time. When I came across one of Captain Brennan's radio operators, he was badly wounded, and I knew I couldn't leave him there. But I couldn't carry him and fight and survive myself either. So when I got the order to fall back again, I stayed. I knew we all would meet the same fate if we didn't do something. I used his radio to make contact while firing artillery and just trying to keep us both alive. Finally, I heard back from some Navy fighters that they were loaded with napalm and needed to know exactly where to drop it. I had 2 smoke grenades left, and so I told them to go ahead and drop it on my smoke. I told them that we were the only 2 friendly people out there. I knew this was the end for me, but I knew my brothers would stand a chance at this point. What I didn't know was how precise the Navy would be when they dropped on my smoke. They dropped their napalm with such precision that it missed us and killed most of the enemy around us. By the end of that airstrike, there were hundreds of enemy soldiers down all around us. I still had my wounded brother and myself, and we were still there alone in the middle of that battle zone. So I started crawling backwards, dragging him behind me for what seemed like forever. I was firing my rifle, trying to keep cover, trying to keep him and me from getting killed and getting more injured. It was only after we finally reached the rest of the company that I found out that I had the only radio actually working, and that was the reason that so many of us now survived, was because I stayed behind with my brother and directed that airstrike. By sundown, it was all over. We lost a lot of men that day, but a lot of us survived as well. I'm happy to report that my brother and I, that I dragged out of the field that day, and to safety, has 3 kids, lives in Delaware. We still keep in touch. The Army awarded me the Silver Star for doing my job that day. We later found out that we had been attacked by the 147th NVA Regiment and that there was over 1,500 of them trying to attack the air base at Da Nang. They didn't succeed. I wish I could say that that was the last battle I fought. It wasn't. But none of the rest ever compared to the Battle of Logain. I served in the 198th Light Infantry Brigade, and I served alongside of some of the best. All who served with pride, heroism, honor, and a sense of duty to our country and to each other, my brothers. I would do it all again, and I'd do it all with them at my side. Those who knew me know I am never without my hat, this hat. It wasn't easy when I returned from the war. While I kissed the ground and when I reached American soil, I was greeted with spit and hate. I never spoke about my time there, and I never felt that being a vet carried a sense of pride with it. We didn't get the reception our soldiers get today. We didn't speak about it. We kept to ourselves and we struggled along. I'm so happy that this has changed. I want to thank everyone here for changing that, for showing veterans of all branches of the military, of all the wars, that it's okay to walk with our heads up. And in fact, we always should. We're American soldiers. Also, I never felt the support back then that I could be proud, and that we can openly show every one of our soldiers coming back from the war today that they're heroes, and give them some of what we didn't get then. Every year I visit my brothers at the Vietnam Veterans Wall in Washington, and I dedicate this night to them and to all the other soldiers who didn't make it back. Thank you and God bless.